how to manipulate those settings, which we just saw. And we're also going to talk about, how to go around and use automations for those bottlenecks that you've probably had beforehand when you might have been paper-based, or maybe use different platforms for different actions like signatures, and then you use a different software for kind of taking care of your clients in a whole different software, with having your clients upload documents to a different portal. All of those things can be fixed with automations, and creating a proper pipeline. So we're going to address how to manage that today. And like I mentioned before, we'll talk about also job recurrences. Now that we have a job template, we have the ability to create a job recurrence. So I'm going to touch upon that now, and then we'll jump into editing the automations. Okay. And before we start digging into this pipeline, we already have a job template, remember that. And when we click on settings, I didn't address this part on the right, and that's what I want to talk about now. So for example, if this pipeline, if I do ever want to create a recurrence, I can select the information on here. So the start date, I can have it be, you know, later on in the year. And I don't want to add an end date because I want my client to be with me forever, I hope. And I want it to repeat once a year. And let's see, I want to do February 10th of every year. This needs to repeat over and over again. What we're doing now is just setting a predetermined time. We're not really making the pipeline repeat now. We're just predetermining the template here for when we do create a recurrence. So I'm going to hit save. And then I'm going to click on workflow, and I'm going to click on job recurrences. This is where you can create a job recurrence. There's also a second way to do that. If I go to pipeline and open my pipeline, I can see something called manage recurrences, and I can create a new job recurrence from here. So let's say I want to choose all of these clients. And then I want them to repeat this pipeline once a year. Notice that everything auto-filled for me. Okay. It's going to be February 9th on here that it's going to repeat. That's a start date. And there is no end date. And I want it to be once a year. If I want it to be once a month, then I choose what date, maybe the 6th of every month. But that would be more for like a bookkeeping example, or that would be more for payrolling. But in this case, I am going to do the year. The job template is important to have because it's going to use the job template to autofill the job whenever this recurrence happens. So in 2025, whenever this happens, it's going to autofill the job for me. Who do I want the assignee to be? I could leave it blank because I can determine that later on, or I can choose someone. For now, I'll leave it blank because I don't know if I'm going to have all these employees next year, right? So I'll go ahead and hit create. And right now it's going to create the recurrence. If I go to job recurrence, you'll see them added here. The next recurrence is going to be in December of 2025, and it's going to happen every year. If I need to edit this, I can actually select many of them and then edit as a whole, maybe a different date here. And if I want to do just one individual, you can just click on the individual account. This is how you manage recurrences. And ideally, it's going to be for you to not worry about something that needs to repeat, right? And the most common thing to do is like a monthly. And if I want it to be every third of the month, and I want it to start, soon, I'm going to hit save. The start date doesn't really matter unless you want it to start maybe tomorrow. You want to choose a day before, but my next recurrence is on the 3rd and it's going to be every month. And for example, when the 3rd comes and it's midnight on the 3rd, it's officially the 3rd, it will generate a job and you will see job live under jobs here. For now, it's just scheduled to happen in the future. It hasn't been generated yet. So at midnight on the 3rd, your client will hit stage 1. What will happen in stage 1? Let's take a look at that. If I click on edit again from this view, now I'm under the hood. I'm under the hood and I can edit what happens in these stages. One of the rules of thumb is each stage can have 100 actions or just 3 like this one. All of these actions usually happen simultaneously, okay? Because they're numbered does not mean that they're necessarily in chronological order. If I click on these, at least the first stage, you'll get the side menu. This is where you can say, I want to change this. I don't want to send a proposal. You could do the trash bin. I don't want to send an email. Or if I do, I want to create a new template from scratch, and you can click on this link. It'll take you to a new tab in which you can create a template from zero. Otherwise, you will have a drop-down menu of whatever action that you'd like to do. When you click on Add Automation here at the bottom, in this section, we have all of the actions that are possible for now in TaxDome. I say for now because TaxDome is consistently developing new features and new actions as time goes by. So this might grow, the list might grow, but for now, this is the amount of actions that you can take. There's 2 kinds of actions. There are passive and active actions. Active actions help you trigger a move to the next stage. Passive actions are something that doesn't require your client or your team to really do anything on your own, right? So let me talk about those kinds of actions. Let's talk about this example. In this template, for example, we're telling TaxDome to send an engagement letter as soon as they hit the stage. Which engagement letter do you want to send? Well, I have a drop-down menu here, and I can choose which one of the templates that I've created. I could have either copied them from the library or I could have created them from scratch. And I'm just going to choose the one that I feel is more appropriate for this particular pipeline. In this case, I'm going to use my individual tax return engagement letter. And I can choose reminders or I can toggle the reminders off if I don't need them. But reminders are really important for you to set up, especially in a pipeline, so that they automatically are sent out to the client. So I want to send a reminder once a day for the next 3 days. That might be bugging your client too much, but maybe it is urgent for them to sign the engagement letter, or else I can start with their service, right? So the frequency is up to you, and you can change this at any time. The emails, for example, would be considered a passive action or automation because it's just a message really. You or your client really don't need to do anything. And even if your client replies to the email, it doesn't trigger any move to the next stage. As opposed to the proposal, that is an active action because once your client hits submit and fulfills the signature, that will trigger a move to the next stage. In this whole stage, we only have this as a trigger. So I'm going to repeat this one more time so it's clear. If you or your client are required to submit or complete something, that will trigger a move to the next stage. If you are automating a system move, such as sending an email, updating account tags, um, maybe sending a chat message or updating the job assignee, which are, many of the actions that you have available to you. Those really don't do anything. They don't require action from anybody, so they will not move to the next stage. Okay. So I'm going to hit cancel here, and I have one other determinant for moving to the next stage. If you go to the bottom of each stage, there is an auto move toggle. You want to make sure that's on so that when the client does submit their proposal or engagement letter, it automatically moves to the next stage, and the next stage is automatically triggered. Remember, when any stage is triggered, everything inside of the actions will happen simultaneously. So in this case, in the second stage, we are applying a folder template, which adds a couple of more folders to their folders, I'm sorry. And we are sending them an organizer for them to fill out, and we're sending them a chat message. Okay. So that automatically gets sent out. You don't really need to do anything. You just sit back and relax while the client does what they need to do, which is sign a document, fill out an organizer. Once the organizer is filled, it will move to the next stage. Usually the in prep stage and on is mostly internal tasks, which means it's something that you and your team need to complete in order to move to the next stage. So rules of thumb, again, make sure you have an actionable automation on here. That means you or your client need to complete something which will trigger a move to the next stage. If you just send an email and that's all you send, that will not trigger a move to the next stage. You probably have to manually drag and drop that account to the next stage if you want them to move to the next stage. So the point of what we're doing is automation. We want things to happen automatically without you having to manually grab clients and throw them into specific pipelines, stages. So that's ideal. I firmly believe that's perfect if you have paper-based clients. You drag and drop the job into the stage that they belong to. That's going to happen. But when you have 500 clients and they're all going to be providing digital signatures and they all are going to be, hands-on with the application in the portal, then I highly suggest you make everything automated as possible. Okay, so I want to make sure that everybody understands all of these rules, because if you don't understand them, it will be a little bit difficult to move forward with creating a pipeline. So now that we understand the rules, let's really take a look at some of these actions, okay? So I'm sending an engagement letter. Perfect. I want to send the individual tax preparation. I'm going to hit save, and then I'll hit save again. You want to make sure you hit save as many times as you can so that you don't lose the work that you're doing. You're probably wondering, why are there two emails on here? So let's talk about that.